Good morning, my friends. It is Wednesday. It is another Wednesday. I am live this morning. True confession, last week I was running behind, so I knew I was going to be running behind, so I had previously pre-recorded it and then posted it. But today I am live. I am live for two reasons. One, the subject that I'm talking about today, and two, I much prefer being live. Know why. There's just something about it. It feels more authentic. It feels more like it's me. So I am live this morning. So for those of you that have just hopped onto this particular page, you have no idea who I am. My name is Cyndi Thompson. I am the CEO of Creating a Passionate Life. And I am doing the Creative Connection for two reasons. One, I believe connection, community, belonging is a need of people. That's the first thing. And I believe that that connection needs to come without judgment and without conditions. So you are all welcome here. The second reason I'm doing this is because I believe that we have the power within us to create our life, art, music, story, dance, connections. I believe that we are all driven by a creative spirit. Now, some of us don't own that, and some of us are quick to say, I am not creative. However, I challenge you in that creativity is an extension of innovation, of ideation. And I know that there are not many new ideas, but there are new ways to look at those ideas. And that is why I have the creative connection. So today is about the difference between performing life and living it. You know, what's interesting is I have been reflecting on this idea for quite some time, almost a year, perhaps almost a year, maybe a little bit longer. But I have been reflecting on this. Am I performing or am I living? How am I showing up? And I after last Wednesday, I attended on Thursday, I attended two things. The first thing I attended was a women's luncheon where there was a speaker there that was fabulous. And if you're in the greater Seattle area and have the ability to see Jen Mueller, who is now the voice of the Seahawks, formerly the voice of the Mariners, and you get to hear her speak about the bubblegum effect, I encourage you to go. She speaks about how small little things create the impact that you want because they build up over time. That was the gist of her talk. I will never do it justice by trying to recreate her talk, but I need to share with you that that was part of that luncheon. The other part of that luncheon was networking. It was getting to know the people that were sitting by me, getting to know the people that were sitting behind me, getting to know the people in the room. And as I left that environment and drove home, and it was a good 30 plus minutes to get home, I reflected on how many of the women that were incredibly skilled and capable and perhaps high achieving, but how quietly they had disconnected themselves from the things in the life that they really wanted to do at one point in their life. And as I was reflecting upon that, I also saw that pattern in myself. In fact, that is why I created my business in 2020, is because I felt myself disconnecting from who I was. So if someone were to walk up to me and say, "Hey, Cyndi, who are you?" I would say that I am a storyteller. I am a teller of my story. I am a helper of others to share their story with the world, and not the story that they think is pretty and nice, but the real story, the real version of who I am. So I wrote about that in my LinkedIn article that went out yesterday. And as is usually the case with a LinkedIn article, it takes several days before everybody gets it. And I have shared a little bit about this on my Facebook page. If you're connected to me on my email list, I've shared it on there as well. And I can tell you that what I'm getting in response, direct messages to me, is thank you for identifying that I'm not living my life. I am performing it. Now, that has not always been the case, and I need to clarify that what you might hear or what your brain might translate here. So at one point in time in my life, I wanted to have a corporate job. I really desired to be a training and development director. I wanted to write training programs. I wanted to roll them out. I wanted to up-level them over time. I wanted to show people how to hire people. I wanted to show people how to coach and train people. All of those things were Cyndi in her 20s, mid to late 20s, early 30s. That was me. And I had great joy in living that life. And then I had children, and I had the opportunity to step away from that and to take on another role, the training and development of my 3 sons. And while I was doing that, I got to do some self-discovery on myself and what might be next for me. What do I want to do next? Interestingly enough, I had no idea how to answer that question. That was in my mid-30s. In my 40s, when I went back to work, my early 40s, when I went back to work, and then I went and got my master's degree in business administration, and I was seeking something to do, I ended up back in this training and development mode, but around a business. How do we develop a business? And how do we take it from, costing us money up front to earning money? But I was still doing it for someone else. And in the midst of that, I realized that this thing that I had had such great passion and joy for and loved living as an extension of who I was in my life, the joy was gone. Now, I was highly capable at the job I was doing, but I was showing up to perform, to do it, but not enjoying it anymore. So I have a question for those of you listening, whether it be live or whether it be the recording. How many of you were taught that to become very responsible, to be the dependable one, to be a leader or a caregiver or a problem solver, that is how you measured your worth? Based on how much of that you could do, how productive you could be, how well you could hold everything together. And is that your focus right now, still holding things together? And the one question that I know that your boss will never ask you, perhaps your partner and spouse in life will never ask you, are you still driven by joy and passion to do that? Sometimes we become so focused on managing life that we stop inhabiting it. And there are some things that begin to set in that we don't notice until perhaps it is too late. Exhaustion. The question, when did exhaustion become normal? Listening to our own internal voice, not the one of judgment and doubt, but the one that's saying, hey, I'd really like to go for a hike this weekend. But then there's that other little voice that says, yeah, but you've got some reports you need to do, and so on and so forth. So when did we stop listening to ourselves? And when did making a choice like that to do something which could be restorative and restful get translated into being unproductive? So after I had my children, and after I got my master's degree, and after I helped this wonderful business owner take his relatively new business from being in the red to being in the black, and to develop a whole nother idea, and to do something that he had always loved to do, I had done my job, and I walked away from that job. There was a bit of a commute involved, and so that was part of the ease of being able to walk away. One would think that I would try and find a different line of work. So my early training and development career, and then this mom and pop business, they were all retail in nature. One would think I would learn to walk away from that. Fast forward. May of 2015, I am working for yet another very large specialty retailer in a local store here in the greater Seattle area. And I had been promoted to that position from another division of their company. Why? Because I was great at hiring. I was great at training. I was great at customer service. I was great at translating customer service. I was great at putting ideas into place. All of those things are highly capable. But there were days that I would go home and I would say, why am I still doing this? But then I'd get up the next day and I go and I do it some more and whatnot. Well, that particular retailer that had many different divisions, which means they had different store names, and I'm not going to name the store and I'm not going to name the company, needed to do some revamping in their stores for one of their divisions. So what they did was they moved all of the management staff and their high performing sales staff into the other divisions of the company. And so I had inherited 3 managers and 6 staff members just before Christmas of 2014. And I don't know if you remember what was going on in the industry, meaning the retail industry around that time. Sales were flat. We were not unusual in that sales were flat. And so now I was way overstaffed as a store. And but I had to still do business. And so I did what I normally do, and that was I scheduled people that were good at certain things at certain times so that they could do those things and whatnot, so on and so forth. By May of 2015, the year my middle child graduated from high school, we were not, as an industry, retail as an industry was not doing well. And not only were the sales flat, they were below. So now I was way overstaffed. And the one thing that I was told by my district manager, probably in March, so 2 months prior, is the staff that I had brought on from this other division, I could not let go. So if I needed to let people go, it needed to be the people that I had hired. Now, mind you, of the staff members that I had on staff that I had hired, they were outperforming these other staff members. I began to wonder if the reason that that was happening had to do with the district manager. It didn't have to do with me. But I did the best that I could, and I honestly, I did not let anybody go because my team was outperforming this other team, and so they were getting scheduled. Well, what naturally started to happen is some of them were not getting enough hours, my staff members, because I still had to staff with the others. So they started to leave, and I graciously accepted all of their resignations as they were finding other things to do. I had a manager that was moving back to Idaho. I said, you know what? I've truly enjoyed working with you. I wish you much success. I had another manager decide that they were going to go to school and get a degree in human resources, and I wished her well. And then I had another manager that decided that he was going to go and do a different kind of work. So I lost my 3 managers, which should have lightened the load, and my district manager should have loved that result because now I didn't have 6 managers working for me. I only had the 3 that I had inherited. And then I had some staff members who needed more hours than they were getting, and I couldn't give them more hours. And then they started to leave. So my team saw the writing on the wall and exited on their own. All in the midst of this, I am wondering why I am still doing this job. So in 2015, I would have been in my early 50s. And here I am. I've been doing retail since I was 16. Why am I still doing it? Why am I on my feet 8 to 12 hours a day, managing people who are supposed to be taking care of customers? And sometimes they do it well, and sometimes they don't do it well. So sometime around my birthday in May, which would have been right about this time of year, and maybe that's why this has come up for me, I arrived to the store one morning, and my district manager is there with an HR representative from the corporate office. And we sat down to chat about the staff turn. I gave the story that I just gave you. And they said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a, what was it called? I'm so out of the industry now. They were going to pay me for a week to leave the store while they did an evaluation of me as a manager and check in with the team. When the HR person said that to me, I said, you know what? I encourage you to do that. Find out whatever you'd like to find out about me. But I would also encourage you to do that for not just my store, but for every store in the district. And mind you, my district manager is sitting right there. I said, you know, this has been a difficult transition with this new district manager, not always feeling supported by my district manager when I have a question. And the HR representative said, you know, I think that's a really great idea. And then I said, and you know something else? I am tired. I have been doing retail since I was 16, on or off, with the exception of a few years while I had my 3 sons. And I don't need this job anymore. Here are my keys. And please pay me for the week that you're going to pay me for. But this is my resignation. So if you want me to come back the week after, I'm happy to. If not, I'm fine as well. And please pay out any PTO. Now, mind you, my district manager did not expect that. She was actually quite dumbfounded that I would do that. When I went and sat in my car afterwards, I realized for the first time in many years that I could take a deep breath, a full breath, all the way down to my belly breath. And I started to relax. And what I realized in that moment, so this is 2015, this is 11 years ago, it wasn't just the job. It was the way I had learned to live. To survive, I needed to work in retail. I needed to have that job. I realized at that moment that there were many years of my life I lived in my head. Now, I did not start this business then, but I did begin to reconnect with what drove me. What did I want in my life? I found a part-time job I could do, got to know some people. It was in a different industry. It was in the banking industry. Realized that wasn't for me. I took my dad's words of encouragement, and because he for years had been involved in the insurance business, he said, try insurance. So I tried that. That wasn't fun either. So then, though, there was an aspect of that mom and pop job that I really liked, and that was connecting with the tourists that came into the greater Seattle area. So I went, I could work for one of the local cruise lines. So I got a outbound sales position with a local cruise line. And mind you, when I began at that job, I loved it. I loved the company. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the people that I worked for. I loved the company. And then COVID hit. And what COVID exposed to me is that in that large corporate environment, there was still the not sharing all the information. There was a lack of trust from the upward management down to us. Now, I was great with customers, so mind you, I was not a part of the wave of layoffs. I was held on to. And I have to tell you, each of the times that they were laying people off, I hoped that I was on the list, but I wasn't. It was because I was capable. It was because I was high functioning and high achieving in that job. It's because I believed in loyalty. That is one of my core values. And so I was going to stick it out to the bitter end, or so I thought. So let's talk about this idea of headspace versus being in our body. I found myself while in retail and then in that early COVID time to the time I walked away from my job a year and a half later, managing my thought processes, my analysis of life, my analysis of what I was doing and whether it made sense and whatnot, and overthinking and planning. And I was emotionally vigilant when I went to work, which, mind you, that workspace is the workspace I'm in right now. Actually, my desk was over there. It was on that desk. And I worked there. So that is the first thing. And I began to realize that I was disconnected from my own body's wisdom. During that early COVID time, up to the time I left, I had connected to a former coach that I had met and went back to them to learn about grounding, to learn about truly breathing, to learn about what that little voice inside of me was telling me, my intuition, leaning into an embodied knowing, slowing down enough to feel, to really feel, and ask the question, given how I feel in this moment, what do I want to do. Reconnecting with the earth and nature. And I'm looking out my window and I have this gorgeous maple tree out here that sometimes looks like it's taking over. And the neighbor who used to live over there would ask us to trim it because too many leaves were getting in his yard. And we never said yes. We said, you're happy to trim it on your side if you would like, if that will help. And he did. So what I have learned in the shows that I've directed, the people who have shown up for my community theater shows, in the coaching work that I've done, in conversations with people that I know, either at a networking event or at church or in the nonprofit organization that I work with, or others that I have known that have crossed my path, I think that many women have learned to survive from the neck up. I know I did. And it wasn't until I reconnected with the neck down that I really understood how and why I wanted to do the things I wanted to do. Reconnecting to ourself, to our body, to our dreams, reconnection to inner knowing is presence. It is how we show up. So what I have discovered, whether it be in my life or whether it be with those people that I have worked with, what I have discovered is that when we are in touch with living, with leaning into what we are passionate about and making choices for our careers and our relationships and our hobbies and however we are living, joy shows up. Even in the midst of a challenge or hardship, joy is there and you can see it. Creativity, ideas, innovation shows up. Breath, you are able to breathe, fully breathe with the trees. You're able to notice small bits of beauty again. You actually begin to feel emotionally connected to yourself. You know when you're sad, you know when you're happy, you know when you're not sure. I'm curious, a reflection question for you in this moment is, what parts of you have gone quiet because survival became louder? I'm going to repeat that because I think that's a very important reflection question. What parts of you have gone quiet because survival became louder? I can give you an example of one that I experienced if you are having a challenge identifying one. My availability to my husband and my children. went silent. I didn't know how to be available anymore. I was so caught up in my own mental mind spinning that it was difficult to connect. These are great reflection questions, especially if you are at a point in your life where you feel like you've reached all that you can reach in the position, the work, the thing that you are doing right now, that you feel like you have reached the pinnacle and you could continue to do it, but you're not sure you want to. That is usually when a woman crosses my path and says, "What do I do?" The first thing I say is, you need time to pause and to breathe, to really reflect and to reconnect to yourself. Because I have met so many women lately that this is where they are, I made a decision at the end of April that I was going to have a space, a free gathering space for women to begin that process of pausing, breathing, reflecting, and reconnecting. If as you are sitting here listening to this, it resonates with you and you're like, "Cyndi, where can I get that?" Saturday mornings in May. I have some things going on in June, so not June, but maybe again in July. But this Saturday morning, I have created a very simple space for women to show up for themselves first. You don't ever have to open your mouth in that space. I will be sharing a 30-minute guided practice that leads you towards learning to pause or relearn how to pause, how to breathe. I will provide you with some reflection questions, whether you are a journaler or not. During that time period, quite often what I ask for you to do is just sit with the question, much like what I do here. And then as you are sitting with that question, connect to the things that come up for you. What is your internal voice asking of you? There is no pressure in this space. There is no performance. There is no needing to have answers. It is really about showing up, being present. It is about taking a moment to close the eyes and reflect inward. Should you choose to have a conversation around it, great. Not necessary. It is about grounding. It is about grounding. Coming back to home. Home is your body, and more specifically for me, home is your lower dantian. Some people call it womb space if you're a woman. If you are a man, it is your power center, but it is lower dantian or hara. That is home. That is where we can balance and ground. It is it's between two chakras, but there is a balancing. There is a coming home. You don't need to become someone new. You may simply need to return to yourself. And that is all I am offering in that space. Before we end today, I want to invite you out of the constant movement of what's happening in your world, of your mind, and to gently come back into your body with a very short guided meditation. If you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. If that's not comfortable, just lower your gaze so that you're not focused on any one thing. Make sure your feet are about hip width or shoulder width apart and on the ground, with or without shoes. Without shoes, you can actually feel, your toes can feel it. But if that's not possible now, just make sure that your feet are flat and relaxed in your shoes. Taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. This time, breathe in and hold, and out. On your next breath in, soften your shoulders and your jaw. Slightly raise the corners of your mouth up into a smile. Now take another deep breath into where your heart is, and notice that your chest will naturally want to open up if you're breathing into your heart. On your next breath in, think of something that you are grateful for today, whether it be the meal that you've recently had, your partner, your child, the work that you do that you love, or just yourself. Take another deep breath in and breathe all the way down through your feet into the ground and be grounded to the earth. Knowing that the earth has your back. It will keep you balanced if you connect to it. On your next breath in, set an intention for today. What is it about today that you intend to do for yourself, not your work, not your partner, not your children? What do you intend to do for yourself? For me, it is to go for a walk. Listen to the birds. What do you intend to do today for yourself? And with that, put a smile on your face. Gently open your eyes. I wish you many blessings for the coming week. In the show notes, you will find the link to my Saturday morning gathering. You will also find a link to find out more about me if you are new. And I will be back next Wednesday, most likely live. I am preparing for my June podcast to have several guests, new people that I've met, that I think you'll find some resonance with. But until then, namaste to you, blessings, and have a great week.